When I was 21, my dad committed suicide, and then when I was 26, almost 27, the boyfriend at the time slash he was my best friend. We had a complicated relationship, but he was the closest person in the world to me. He died of a drug overdose, and so both of those experiences left more so my boyfriend's death because I had a better relationship with him than I had with my dad. But also, I think in hindsight, I can see that with my dad, I just kind of avoided it. And then when my boyfriend died, it was like, can't avoid this anymore, and both of these big things just kind of being shoved in my face. And I had to figure out what to do with that.
Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and soul purpose coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast, Laura. I have been long looking forward to this conversation. I know logistics, life, all the things, but I'm so excited that we are finally getting to sit down together and do this. And you have had quite a journey with grief and loss and a lot of different types. So I know people here listening can, I think in a lot of ways, whether or not they've been through something exactly like you have, just really resonate with you. And I think it's just so incredible the work that you're doing and how you are coming at it from such a place of service and heart amongst everything that you have been through. And that just says so much about you. So I'm just so excited to have you here. So a big welcome to you.
Yeah. Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were able to jump over all the hurdles to get here. So
yes, all the sick kids, my sick
yes,
child,
yes.
namely. So let's just kick this off by you telling everyone who isn't familiar with you or the work that you do or your story, just a little bit about you and what you like to do for fun facts about you, and then we will get into all the griefy stuff.
Yeah. So my name is Laura. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am it's always such an interesting process. Like, what's going to come up today? What's the story of me today?
Seriously,
I don't know.
though.
We'll see. But I'm trained as a mental health therapist, licensed as a mental health therapist, and have been doing that for over a decade, doing that work, specifically working with grief and trauma. And in more recent years, I've been stepping a bit out of the therapy box and kind of expanding my offerings and what I'm doing for a lot of reasons, but I'll just highlight for the purposes of this conversation, just trying not to feel so limited in what I am able to do and to have a broader reach of people I am able to work with. But it's all around the topic of grief support, grief education, grief resources, all in the grief world. And I went to grad school to become a therapist and work specifically with grief. And then the expansion of that work that I'm talking about now is all inspired by my own personal experiences with death that just, totally changed the trajectory of my life, which I'm sure we'll dive into more in some form or another in this conversation today. But
definitely.
just high level overview. It's my experiences that brought me to where I am. Now.
Well, let's dig into that actually. Perfect segue, because that was going to be my next question. I would love for you to share with everyone your journey with grief and loss, however much you are comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So I think of it in terms of I've had two really significant deaths that happened in my life, and both of them happened when I was in my 20s. So I was pretty young.
Pivotal years.
Yeah. When I was 21, my dad committed suicide. And then when I was 26, almost 27, the boyfriend at the time slash he was my best friend. We had a complicated relationship, but he was the closest person in the world to me. He died of a drug overdose. And so both of those experiences left more so my boyfriend's death because I had a better relationship with him than I had with my dad. But also, I think in hindsight, I can see that with my dad, I just kind of avoided it. And then when my boyfriend died, it was like, can't avoid this anymore, and both of these both of these big things just kind of being shoved in my face, and I had to figure out how to what to do with that. And being that I was so young, that I think added additional layers of challenge in that there was nobody else who was my
Yeah.
age, who was experiencing um, these things. I couldn't find good support. I tried everything, but
Mhm.
any support groups I found, in particular, I was trying to find something that felt more real to me while we weren't married. We were still partners, so looking for like partner support groups.
Yeah.
What I could find was 80 or 90-year-olds whose partner
Yeah.
had died, which is a just a different, it's
It's
not better or
different.
worse, it's just a
Exactly.
different experience. And I couldn't find the same support that better matched who I was and where I was in my life and
Right.
what my relationship lost was. So
Yeah.
navigating, trying to navigate that at such a young age, in combination with the fact that because I was so young, I didn't really even have a career path lined out. I wasn't really doing anything with my life at that point. And so it was kind of like the perfect storm, that motivated me that would become what I would do with my life, was
Yeah.
to support people through this. And so that led to me going to grad school, that led to me starting my own therapy practice, that led to all of these next things. Um, but I do think a lot of it was just, the timing in which all of it happened for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Can you walk me through, let's just kind of starting with with your father being that the first loss, it sounds like that relationship was a little complicated. No need
Yeah.
to go into like nitty-gritty details again, what I honor how sacred that relationship is. My question is more around the mental health aspect of it. And actually if that is not, this is very black and white, but just bear with me, almost like because of him or because of things that you had like witnessed that like ultimately inspired you, for lack of a better term, to get into the mental health field. Like had he
Mhm.
struggled with that leading up to his death?
Yeah, he had struggled with mental health for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
I think he did before I was born, but
Right.
um, obviously I only have the perspective from since I was alive. But he he talked about suicide when I was a kid. He would just kind of casually
Oh, that's
mention
so
it, like,
scary.
yeah. So that was scary, but normal, as
Wow.
kind of sad as
Yeah.
that sounds, that was normal conversation within the environment in which I grew up. It wasn't all the time, but it was
You remember it.
occasion. I
Like,
remember, yeah. So, and then I saw him. I just saw the who he was. Like, I don't even want to say who he was because I don't think it's who he was, but the characteristics that he had and the way that he showed up in
mm,
relationship with people and the way that he showed up in the world. I saw those. I witnessed that throughout my childhood, and it was inconsistent, and sometimes it was a big teddy bear of a dad, and sometimes it was explosive for
mm,
seemingly no reason.
mm,
So, while as a child, I didn't have words for that, and I didn't have understanding for that I have now.
mm.
It was very much in my face every day, as I was growing up. Um, so yeah, so then when he did die, I wasn't surprised, because it had been talked about for so long, but I, of course, was shocked by
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's still shocking. I mean, even like for my parents dying of cancer, I knew the cancer was there. I knew they
Yeah.
were going to die of it. The writing was on the wall. It's still, nothing prepares you for when that moment
Mhm.
actually
Yeah,
happens,
yeah,
right?
there's nothing. It's still so shocking.
Yeah, I can't imagine growing up with that language, with that. Like, did you, as like a younger child, I guess, however, what age you ever want to focus on, but like even understand the gravity of that, what that really meant? Like, how did
No, of
you?
course, no, I didn't. And I
Yeah.
think that this is only upon reflection, as
Yeah.
I've grown and learned what I've learned as it relates to mental health and like kind of looking back on my childhood. But I think so. I'm the oldest child of three. And so I think the way that I made sense of that, or, the
Mhm.
way I learned to navigate that was just I became a perfectionist and a control freak. Don't love that
It's a
term,
little type A.
but very much like to be in control of things, and I like things to be perfect. And it's
That
still
kind of
something
makes
that
sense.
I work with. But the way that I've made sense of that is that in my little brain, my child brain, I was able to be like, well, if I just can, because sometimes my dad was a great, loving dad, and sometimes he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I think I made sense of it in the way that if I can just do it right, whatever that
Mm.
means, then I'll get the version of my dad that I want and that I
Yeah.
love, and then he'll stay alive.
Wow.
So none of that was, of course, clearly articulated to me, but I do think that's the way I kind of learned how to navigate my life and the world at that young age.
Yeah. That is a lot for
Yeah.
one very, very young person
Yeah,
to go
it
through. Oh
is.
my God. I
Yeah.
mean, just your whole childhood leading up to that, but then yeah, I mean, 21. Yeah, legally you're adult, but you are so not an adult.
No,
Like y-
you're not.
you're just not. Brain's not developed all the thing. I'm still not
Yeah.
convinced our brain is like ever fully developed. I'm so not a doctor, so I really can't say that. But I don't know. I question the question. But
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
all jokes aside, I think what you've kind of been touching on is like, you continue to try and make sense of things. Things can hindsight's 2020, right? Like you
Yeah.
continue to kind of unpack all of that and come to understand what was really happening in the time, what you might have really been feeling. But like, I mean, how are you supposed to know? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, as a young person. So talk to me a little bit about, so your dad passes away. What did life then look like for you then? And then kind of I was also curious in terms of like weaving this into your experience with your boyfriend. Like when did you meet him? Had you already known him? Like
Mhm.
what did that timeline look like?
Yeah. So I had already, at the time of my dad's death, I had already met my boyfriend.
Okay.
We were we were in
Because you
each
said he was
other's lives.
best friends. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's always, I don't know what to call him, now, because
Yeah.
we actually weren't even technically together
Okay.
at the time of his death. But I mean, that if this had happened like 3 months prior, we would have been, so it's,
Mm,
and
little gray area there,
it's a very
perhaps.
much a gray area. And
Yeah. Okay.
um, more than anything, we were in each other's lives for 8 years. And during that time, I mean, I think 18 to 26. So that's
Yeah. Very formative
very,
years.
very formative years, but also very young, like stupid
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
Uh, but he was my best friend more than anything. We were on and off as far as if we were technically together in a relationship, but he was my best friend. We just had this connection that I had never had with anybody up until that point. And some of our time together was long distance, so we weren't even always living in the same state, but
Mhm.
we were just connected in such a way that he he was and would have been by far the hardest person in the world for me to lose.
And then you did.
Yes, and then I did. So, but yes, so I had known him for 3 years maybe at the time of my dad's death.
Right.
Um, And at that time, we were living in different states. And so my dad died in June. And then I think I was in college. I finished out the semester of college. But then for the next semester, I ended up moving to the state where my boyfriend was living.
Okay.
Um, and I remember feeling like, got just so over. I live in Arizona and this was in Arizona, but
Mhm.
so over Arizona. That's where my dad died, where I grew up. And I was just
Yeah.
done with it, over it, wanted to get away.
Sure.
But I also had in hindsight, I can see I had no coping skills, no tools available to
Right.
me. And so it was just, let's just leave this state, kind of pretend it didn't
Doesn't
happen. We'll go
exist. Yeah.
away. We'll go on with our lives in this new state. And that was my strategy for coping
Yeah.
with my dad's death.
Many people can
Um,
relate to that. Let me get the
yeah,
hell out of here. Yeah.
yeah. And it worked until it didn't. And
Usually how it
that,
goes.
yeah. And it didn't work when my boyfriend ended up dying. And then I was facing that situation and the grief with that, compounded by, I think, what I had never dealt with or looked at with my dad's death.
Yeah. Again, not needing to divulge any details or anything like that. Is there anything you can speak to in terms of his mental health, or was it that he just had a struggle with drugs, alcohol, whatever it was?
Mhm.
Like, just what kind of, from your point of view, like
Yeah.
brought that to the
Yeah.
overdose?
It is so interesting because that's been something I've been thinking about more lately,
Mm.
knowing what I know about mental health and
Mm,
knowing,
mhm.
uh, and just coming, it's been 18 years now, so I have a
Yeah,
totally different perspective on life,
of course.
than I did at that point. And so trying to look back at that situation and make some degree of sense of what I think might have been going on for him,
Mm,
kind of what his family situation was like, just, all of these factors, trying to make sense of that in a different way has been actually quite interesting for me to
mhm, mhm.
like put some pieces together in a way that I just couldn't have understood before.
Right.
Um, so I mean, I would say at the time that no, I don't think there were any mental health things going on. I think he
Mhm.
was a big fish in a small pond and thought he was invincible, which
Yeah.
a lot of 20 somethings do.
Yes.
Um, and he was just like, he was very charming. He was the guy everybody wanted to be friends with or everybody
Mhm.
wanted to date. He was magnetic. His energy was magnetic.
Yeah.
And I think but he liked to party too, and
Yeah.
like didn't think there were consequences to it,
Yeah.
and there were.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's really kind of eerie actually hearing you tell the story, and I haven't actually really talked about this on the podcast yet,
Hmm.
interestingly enough, but I I didn't know anybody who super personally, who either ha had an overdose and lived through it, or
Hmm.
had one and then died. Last year, I lost who I would consider to be a very dear friend, although the last time that he had like texted me was on Mother's Day of last year. It was my first Mother's Day. So we would talk here and there. But it's really interesting hearing you share your story because we had a very similar situation through like 19 through like, or maybe early 20s. It was less time, but like we had a little bit of an on again, off again. There was like a
Hmm.
romantic relationship, but there was also a best friend relationship, and very similar. He liked to party, but maybe there was some deeper things going on there, which I feel like there were. I feel like there is something usually there if someone tends to do take drugs, do alcohol, like
Yeah.
drink and do drugs a lot. I'm not gonna. Again not a professional here, but I think for him there might have been like a little bit of escapism there. He was always traveling to a different country. Like he just was never like settled.
Yeah.
And I found out last year, unfortunately, just through like a Facebook post, because again, we weren't, we had like some mutual friends that we would hang out with in our early to mid 20s, but like not close enough to them so much anymore that they would like text me about it. So I see it in a Facebook post
Hmm.
that he died.
Hmm.
They didn't say how. I reached out to one of those friends to be like, what the hell happened? And
Right.
they were like, it was an overdose. And it still haunts me because I, to be very blunt, don't know if it was intentional or not.
Hmm.
The feeling I have, and I think maybe the feeling of a couple other people, is it was not intentional. And it's actually really interesting. I go to a medium every once in a while, and I
Hmm.
asked about him there too.
Yeah.
And again, if anyone listening here, take it with a grain of salt. But she was like, I'm getting the feeling it was not intentional. Um, but I'm seeing like prescription bottles. So like, but regardless, acting irresponsibly. They
Yeah.
just playing with fire,
Yeah.
whatever they were doing. So but just again, I can't compare when we can't compare in grief, regardless, but the probably the depth and the current relationship that you had with him
Hmm.
at that point, and then having that happen. I mean, but again, with any romantic feelings involved or any, it complicates it. Like
Yeah.
it just does. And so my heart goes out to you though, because I get, and especially with the overdose part of it, it's just
Mhm.
in my now very, very new experience, I think the hardest part for me there is like, I have some anger about that because
Yeah.
I'm like, could you, I'm like, I'm saying this very like casually, but like, could you just not just
Yeah.
stop?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
don't do drugs. Don't
Yeah.
drink. Don't all the things. And I have another person in my life right now that's going through some things with that. And it got very scary recently. And thankfully they're getting help. But it's like, it's, and it's not, I don't even want to blame them so much. It's like, it's insane to me. Just humbling, really, the like control that drugs and alcohol can have on
Yeah.
people's
Mhm.
lives,
Yeah.
one way or another. And when a death results from that, it's really hard to make sense of because, like, at least for me, and I'm curious how you think feel about this too, is like that felt avoidable.
Mhm.
Like it just feels avoid. And maybe it wasn't for them. You know what I mean? I know there's so much more to the story. I know that like it's not that black and white, right? It's for
Yeah.
a lot of people, it's not just, I can't just stop. Like if there's an addiction there or if there's some level of dependency, like it's just not that straightforward. But at the end of the day, you just want to shake them and be like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Why?
Mhm.
Why? This was so unnecessary. So, I mean, let me ask you, I mean, did you feel like kind of just walk me through like, okay, so this death happens, like what were you feeling after that? Does anything I just said kind of is like how you felt about it at all in terms of like anger, this could have been avoided, what the
Yeah.
hell? And then just like what did moving forward, I guess, from there look like for you?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah.
With
Loaded question.
yeah, well, just a complicated answer, so many
Hmm.
layers of answer that I think has just changed for me over the
Yeah.
years, right? The way that I make sense of it and the way that I understand it.
Hmm.
Um, I I have had moments of the anger, like the what the hell? Yeah, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Those
It's very simple, right?
yeah, I've had those moments, but they haven't been the loudest. They haven't been
Mm-hmm.
as big as some other moments have had and or have been. And actually it's interesting because I mean my dad committed suicide, so also something that
Also,
he
could
an
have similar
action he
feelings about that
took.
to
Yeah.
sure, of course.
And so with both of them, just as I said earlier, these two deaths have just completely shaped the direction of my life. And there are moments when, it's sticking out to me that these have happened. Like if I've gone out of town for a training or something and I'm staying
Hmm.
at a hotel, I'm like checking into a hotel, I'm at this training, I'm by myself, I've traveled, to another state for whatever this training, where I'll be like, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
because of the choices these two people made now,
Yeah.
like this, I mean, granted, I know I have free choice
Oh,
in my
yeah, there's
life
free will
too,
in there, but no, it's so
but
true. Like, yeah.
that because of their choices, like
Yeah.
this has dictated my entire life,
It's crazy to think about. Yeah.
yeah. And so there are moments of that,
Yeah.
but I would say those moments are more rare than
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that's more common to right when it happens earlier on. I mean, yeah, I think the more time goes on, the more you can reflect back on it, the more self-awareness you have, the more, in your case, training that you have,
Yeah.
right? So like
Mhm.
you've really educated yourself big time in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways on how to cope with all of this. So actually that is perfect segue again, leads me into sort of my next question iteration of this conversation for you is like how did you start getting into this work? So he passes away.
Mhm.
What did those next, I guess maybe a few years look like for you? How did you determine like, okay, I really want this to be my career path? And like, how did their deaths really kind of, for lack of a better term, convince you like to
Yeah.
get into this path?
Yeah. I think it was because I struggled so much to find
Mm,
good support.
yeah.
I tried a lot of things. I mean, I went to therapy, a lot of different therapists over the years. I tried a lot of different other types of modalities.
Hmm.
And some were decent and good, but
Hmm.
overall, the experience I had in any support I sought out was that I was a problem, was that I was being viewed as like a
Mhm.
problem that needed to be fixed. And if we just do X, Y, and Z, then that fixes it. You're good. Everything's done.
So unrealistic.
Yeah. Um, and even at the time, not knowing um, much, that felt weird and wrong to me because it's like these people died. I think I should be sad. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so
Right.
why is it so difficult to find support around that in the
Yeah.
world? So because of the struggles I had there, that was what inspired me to essentially just to try to do better, to try to support people going through something similar-ish in
Yeah.
a better way than what I was able to find.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that whole just that idea of, and I think a lot of us in this grief space, but just in like the wanting to help people, the healing space, all of that, like we just want to be the resource that we didn't
That we
have
didn't
or
get.
that
Yeah.
we yeah.
Hmm.
Can you talk to me really quickly before I have a couple more questions for you just about yoga and how that
Hmm.
has affected you, brought maybe some healing
Yeah.
and whatever to your life because I saw that about you and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, because I've had a few guests on that have really leaned into yoga, became certified, teach yoga, whatever, and like swear by it. So how
Yeah.
has it helped you?
Yeah. Hugely. So I want a quick question for you. Do you have any experience with yoga? Just so I
I
know
do.
kind of what language. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But just in
Okay.
case anyone here listening maybe doesn't or is like kind of beginner,
Yeah.
whatever, we can keep it
Yeah.
basic.
Yeah. So I've been practicing yoga now for over 20 years. So I
Wow.
started practicing, probably it was probably very soon after my dad's death, that I
Okay.
started practicing. Um, and I got into it like most people do, I think for the physical aspect, for
Mhm.
the workout. And that's mostly what it was for me for a long time. But even just that, because I was never like, I wasn't a kid who ever played sports. I think in hindsight, I was very disconnected from my body, I can see.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So my yoga practice, even just the physical element, was the first time I ever felt connected and got more into my body.
Mhm.
So even just that part of it was hugely, helpful for me just in life in general,
Right.
navigating life. But it was about a year after my boyfriend died that um, I actually had already done a yoga teacher training prior to that, but I did another yoga teacher training that was, I think, 10 months long. So it was much more extensive than your average yoga teacher training that you might have. And it
Right.
focused really heavily on the eight limbs of yoga. So
Okay.
traditionally, just I'll try to do a brief like recap of
Yeah,
that.
I'm
But
very curious about this now. I have not heard of this. So, yeah.
yeah, so traditionally, according to I think it's probably multiple yoga texts, but in particular, there's one called the Yoga Sutras
Yes.
of
My mom
Patanjali.
studied that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, he defines yoga in that book as being the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. So
Got it.
yoga is the stilling of the mind.
Yes.
So that's, in other words, that's the goal of yoga is to
Right.
still our minds. So there are eight limbs or paths, you might call them, that are, I think of them as just like different tools of
Mhm.
how to get there, how to like different practices of how you can still your mind. And they all really blend together and
Kind of
complement.
intertwined a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
complement each other very well, but asana, which is the physical poses, is just one of those eight limbs.
Yes.
So when we say yoga and when we talk about yoga, um, generally in this society at least, that's what people think of is the asana, which is the physical poses, and that's what you're going to find in most any yoga class you might stumble into.
I was gonna say
Is
like so
the
it says like shavasana or something like
Mhm.
that. So it's like, is it like shiv and then asana after? Like,
Yes,
am I
yeah, yeah.
understanding that
So
right?
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, I'm
yeah.
34 years old and I
Did you
never
just
knew
connect
this.
that? Yeah,
Wow.
yes.
Oh my gosh, I know
Yeah.
things. This is
Yeah.
wow. That was
Mhm.
humbling. Okay,
Mhm.
amazing. All right, I
Yes.
understand that now. Okay, cool.
Perfect. Yeah. So, this yoga teacher training I did, we didn't even like touch the teaching part of yoga until probably 6 months into the program. So the
Wow.
pieces of the program were learning about these other limbs of yoga. I mean, and really through that, you're learning about yourself,
Yes, I would imagine.
deep dive into yourself, and just better understanding why you react to certain things the way you do, what beliefs you have around certain things, like all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the part that for me was the hugely transformative piece as it relates to my grief, and
Sure.
also just as it relates to functioning as a human being.
Day-to-day life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But, and of course, it's impossible to summarize
Mhm.
what all of that was in a couple sentences, but very broadly, it was the practice of learning. What I learned from that was the practice of sitting with something that's really uncomfortable
Yep.
and learning how to relax with what is.
Ooh,
So
it's powerful.
it was it was really uncomfortable that these people in my life had died, I was fighting it and I was like, but they shouldn't have, and what if, and blah blah blah, like all the
All the
stories.
things. Yeah.
But when I was able to just recognize that and not that that's bad, but just I was able to understand and see that that's what I was doing. I could also understand and see that how that was impacting me in the
Right.
additional layers of suffering that was adding on. And that being able to
Wow.
see that is a game changer. Uh,
Yes.
so
Eye-opening.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was what yoga, in a nutshell, was for me as it
Mhm.
relates to my grief and how, um, I mean, it's still a continued practice and still, something I'll, here's hoping, do for the rest of
Always
my
do.
life.
Yeah.
But using those teachings,
Mhm.
as a way to better understand our grief and better understand ourselves and better understand what possibility maybe exists for us within the way we live with our grief. Like
Mhm.
that's been, I've already used the word, but that's been
Oh,
completely transformative.
oh my God. That's
Uh,
major. So,
yeah.
and also, can I just ask you really quick, like, how, because I feel like you are just so well rounded in terms of like the knowledge that you have around like almost kind of the science, like the more textbook way of
Mhm.
understanding mental health and grief and all of this, because you are well certified and you obviously you're, a therapist as well. So like you have that, but then also this more kind of like really mind, body, spirit, like this the spiritual side, right?
Yeah.
Of
Mhm.
grief and how we're connected to ourselves and to others and everything. So, I mean, incredible. You're just a breath of knowledge. I love this for you. And by extension, us. So, what are, if someone is listening here right now
Mhm.
and they are in the throes of grief, or they actually, I'm going to ask this two ways. Number one,
Okay.
if they are in the really like more raw, earlier, if you will. I don't even want to say earlier stages though, because sometimes you never know. Like we can go through something in life and it can throw us right back into week one of our grief for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So let's just say someone's just really struggling with their grief right now, not sure where to turn in terms of coping, just not finding things that will work for them. What tip, piece of guidance, word of wisdom would you say to that person who's really in the thick of it right now?
Hmm.
I know, big question.
Yeah. Yeah. Big question. One thing somebody said to me that I still remember, and that I think is relevant in a lot of ways is because I really struggled with the idea of living the rest of my life without these
Hmm.
people,
Yeah.
right? Especially when I'm 20. Like that's a long
Right.
time,
It's a long
maybe,
time, God willing.
to live the rest
Yeah.
of my life without these people. Like that seemed unimaginable,
Yeah.
completely impossible. And so my friend said to me, just take it one moment at a time. And that, like, I feel like I'm almost going to cry just saying that
Mm.
because that was such a like, what? Like
It's
that's,
so like like I'm gonna say simple and straightforward,
yeah,
but it's not simple at all. If
no,
you are in the throes
yeah,
of grief, that is not easy. You're
no,
you're you're living in the past, you're thinking 10 steps ahead, you're literally anywhere but the present moment
yes,
with grief.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's simple, but yeah,
but
not
not
easy,
in
as you
practice.
said. Yeah. But also part of the reason I also really like that is because it forces us to slow down and it
Mhm.
forces us to be present in this moment. And now, knowing what I know from a mental health perspective, like we
Mhm.
are, oftentimes in lots of situations in life, but also in grief, we can be functioning from a place of fight or flight.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
which is not in the present moment.
Mhm.
That is either stuck in some past moment or worried about some future moment. It's not,
Exactly.
assuming there's nothing attacking me in this moment,
Right.
it's not in the present moment.
Yep.
So if we this practice of kind of slowing down, taking it one moment at a time can
Mhm.
teach us to to presence ourselves in this
Mhm.
moment, to be just in this moment where this in this moment I am safe.
Yes.
Although I'm terribly sad,
Yep.
um, I'm safe, it's a different thing to approach your grief from a place of fight or flight
Yes.
versus from a place of being present with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that so much. I just did a recording that's coming soon about that, and it's so true. I mean, I say it all the time. It's moment by moment. But those little moments I feel like are where some of the biggest impact is, and we don't even
Hmm.
realize it. We don't
Right.
even
Yeah.
understand how much we're helping ourselves in those moments by taking it a moment at a time and focusing on what we can control, what is in front of us right here, right now, and just taking the next best step that we
Yeah.
can. Like
Yeah.
it's sometimes literally that doesn't feel like enough for some people, but sometimes that's literally all it is. That's all it
Hmm.
even like can be for the moment to
Hmm.
really like get get us just simply through the day. Like,
Yeah.
and again, I keep saying simply, but none of it's simple. I want to acknowledge that. But
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah. I love that too, the next best step.
yeah,
Um,
I also, you know what's you're gonna laugh at me for hearing that, but I actually I don't know like who necessarily I don't know that anyone even really created that. Randomly, I heard the actor Chase Stokes from like Outer Banks and stuff, like that Netflix show. He was in an interview and had said something about that. And he was like, I just want to always do like the next right thing.
yeah.
And I was like, that's probably not the first time I heard that, but for some reason that really stuck with me
Hmm.
because and that's just I feel like and actually this is a great again kind of last segue into my last question for you was like kind of similar question to what I just asked in terms of like okay, so let's say someone is here listening that is carrying their grief with them. They have their sad moments like we all do. We have our grief that comes up, right? But we are wanting to just take the next step in our life and really live and like really learn to enjoy ourselves again and have that better mind body connection and feel more aligned and more in touch with ourselves. Is there anything that you would, and that maybe you're using more of your yoga hat on this one? I'll let you answer however you want, but like, what would you maybe say to that person? And that's where I kind of have that lens of what Chase said is like, all you can do is the next sort of like best thing, the next right thing. Cause I think what I loved about that is there's like an implication of just awareness and just this consciousness of like, okay, here's what I am doing here in this moment. Here's what I'm doing now. And it's just like we carry that with us in any decisions that we make or how we speak to someone or how we whatever. And it sounds like a lot of the work that you have done has made you more aware. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but at least to me it sounds like it's made you have this beautiful awareness of like, your thoughts, your actions, how it's all connected. So is
Yeah.
there any kind of like last little bit of again, tip, word of wisdom, piece of guidance that you would give to someone who's maybe a little bit more in that space?
Yeah. What's coming to mind for me in response to that is, uh, how do I want to say it? Just this idea of choice. You
Yeah.
have a choice. You get to make the choice in um, what you believe,
Mhm.
what you want that next right step to be for
Yeah.
you. That might whatever that is for you might be different than somebody else, but that doesn't matter, and you get to make that choice. And
Yep.
a lot of to, uh, I'm not going to dive into this too much, but a lot of the reason why I think I didn't feel a lot of anger, as you had talked about earlier
Hmm.
was because I spent a lot of time, I wasn't raised with religion, so I didn't come into this with any kind of belief system around now that they
Hmm.
died where they were. So that
Right.
was something that was hard for me when they first died because I'm like, but where are they? You know, like
Of
I
course.
had
Yeah.
no understanding of that. So I spent a lot of time reading books and, just kind of like researching different people's belief systems around
Yep.
this. And from that, I kind of crafted my own belief system that felt true to me and made sense to me. Um,
I
that
love that.
maybe if I tried to explain that to somebody else, they'd be like, "You're crazy." But it works for me. And so my point
That's
being,
important.
though, is that like I made the choice to believe what I believe,
Hmm.
regardless of what somebody else might think about it, because that fits me.
Yep.
And that's a way that I can live the rest of my life with these losses. Right. And so
Yeah.
I think we lose or we don't lose it, but we lose sight of our ability to make choices in grief.
Yes.
And that contributes to when we can feel so lost and disempowered and
Yeah.
not knowing what the next right step is,
Yeah.
what the next right choice is. Um, so this is a long-winded answer, but I think
I
it's
love this answer. No, please.
highlighting the choice, that there is a choice and it doesn't have to make sense for anybody else as long as it makes sense for you.
Yeah. I love that so much. It's just those empowered choices, ways of living that make sense for us. There are no rules. And I think there are a lot of us that feel very tied by, and I don't say this to knock religion, but like, religious
Hmm.
beliefs, just anybody else around us, religious or not, really, that about how we should be grieving, how we should be acting, how we should do everything, really. I
Everything.
mean, everyone's always going to have an opinion. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny you bring that up because I was just talking to a client about that the other day, and I could tell they were taking in way too many other people's thoughts and opinions and feelings, and they did not once mention like how they felt about it or
Yeah.
what was true for them. And then I like posed that question, and they were like, I don't even know what. No one's asked me that before. I haven't even asked
Yeah.
myself that.
Yeah.
So that's there's so much power in that. And
Hmm.
I love how you just tied that in because I think our whole just sense of like authority on making decisions in our own life feels just super out of touch and just rocked now. And nor do we even like want to make decisions. We don't want to like decide half the time what we want to eat for dinner. We're like, I don't know,
Right.
someone else choose something. I can't deal right now.
Yeah.
So, that's, I love what you said earlier, moment by moment. Like that's a process too, is just, that. And then getting to know, sounds very cliche, but, getting to know this kind of new version of ourselves and like, okay, what is
Mhm.
that person's thoughts and feelings and belief systems? And
Yeah.
is it different than it was before? Yeah, okay, I think it is. All right, well, that's okay. Oh, okay, I'm gonna get curious about that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna embrace that, um, and kind of figure that out, and do that really
Yeah.
unapologetically because we shouldn't have to always apologize for the things that we think and feel and
Yeah.
believe. Like
Yeah.
there's some, unless we're doing something wildly unethical, then yeah, I mean, like you know, be kind to people, but like I
Yeah.
don't know. There's just yeah, I think a lot of that can get really lost in translation when we
Hmm.
go through
It
loss
can.
and just
It
building
can.
that up again.
And it changes. Like what I
Yes,
believed before might not be what I believe anymore. And we
absolutely.
can get so lost in figuring out what that means now. So
Yeah. And put pressure on ourselves to do
yeah.
that and to be, oh my God, I gotta get my shit together, right? Like we could
Yeah.
just feel so under pressure to do that. Or I know a lot of people too that maybe are like further along in that process and they're like, oh, what is my purpose here? What is my meaning? I want to find, I need to create something out of this. And it's like, but it's like the more that we put pressure on that, like the less we're gonna come to that whatever that is like more organically, and you're missing the whole process of getting
Mhm.
there, and it's a painful process like you were
Yeah.
saying, like it's not all sunshine and daisies and rainbows here, but it's
Right.
but it is a sacred process that it is a part of the human experience, and it is
Mhm.
something that we are fortunate enough to go through. Like I was just talking to someone about this today, like to how fortunate in a way that we are to not
Mhm.
go through loss, but like that is part of truly living and what it means to truly live. And we can have these perspective shifts and, all of these, yeah, just wonderful new perspectives that we didn't have before. Get into a line of work like you, that you, or even myself, like that we never thought was going to be on our bingo card,
No,
but here we
no,
are, and
yeah.
we're doing the damn thing. So yeah, well said. So true. Thank you so much for all of that. And just to wrap this up, thank you so much for your insight, for being here today, for sharing your story. Those are two incredibly difficult deaths, two very, very painful ways to lose someone. Like, I never ever want to compare like the way in which somebody dies, but like that's and to lose very pivotal people in your life as well. So and I know you've been through other losses even on top of what we've talked about today. So just thank you so much for sharing all of that, sharing your guidance, your wisdom, your knowledge with all of us. I'm so glad we got to talk about that yoga bit too, because also
Yeah,
just to learn a little bit more about yoga today, but also I really do think that mind, body, spirit, connection is super, super important. And it's like not what a lot of people grieving are like first to think of, right? Like I
right.
think that's something we get there like down the line. So I think anybody hearing this today, number one, is going to just be very inspired by you, but also can hopefully understand how impactful it is to like get an understanding of that, even like sooner than later, as much as we can,
Yeah,
because I think it'll
yeah,
help us just make sense of, a lot of what has happened, what is happening currently, and then, looking ahead as well. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
thank you
thank
so
you so
much,
much for
Laura.
having me. I love the conversation and
Me as well.
glad it finally happened.
Me too. Really quick, where can
hmm
everyone find you if they want to connect with you, work with
hmm
you, all the good things?
Yeah, so my business is called Grief on Purpose. So I have a
Love
website,
that.
griefonpurpose.com, and then social presence. So Instagram is grief dot on dot purpose. And same as Facebook. And then I have a Facebook group as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Well, this will all be linked in the show notes, but
Yeah.
thank you so much, Laura, again, for
Yeah.
your time today. Really appreciate you coming on. I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.